Today we have two Panda Dial Daytonas before us. One is real, one is fake. Can you tell the difference? Completely reverse engineered movement, which means that these replica factories have someone go out, purchase an authentic watch, they bring it back, basically dissect it, and every single component of this watch, aside from a few, which I'll mention in a moment, are 100% reverse engineered, fully functional, same configuration on the dial side, same location of all the components. All of the jewel locations are essentially, they have the same XY coordinates because they are making the 4130 movement. Well, it's worth mentioning that both the frequency and the power reserve of the replica is the same as a real 4130.
But this Daytona is different. This is probably the most accurate replica I have ever seen, and it's also the first one on which I couldn't immediately spot something right away. It really took a good amount of time and an ultra macro lens to be able to spot distinct differences between the replica and the original. And on a not so fun side fact, we brought it to a watchmaker and they weren't able to tell them apart either without taking the case back off.
They're trying to make something as close to this quality as they can at the lowest cost that they can do it. Next thing we're going to be looking at is the overall case and bracelet surface finish. You're looking at something that is extremely difficult to distinguish as fake just by looking at the external overall cosmetic of the watch. That the power reserve and the frequency of this movement is identical to the 3235, as well as 98% of the components in this movement. You can take a Rolex component, put it into the fake, and it will most likely fit because they're reverse engineering this movement. One of the best that I've seen, there is a 116610 black bezel version. It's the previous reference that we'll be doing in a future video. I think that's the best that I've seen. Honestly, these watches on the street, in authorized dealers and boutiques, no one will be able to call these out based on the quality that they're achieving now. So if you want to be able to identify them, you really have to look for the details, and that's what we're trying to provide you.
And it has become increasingly more difficult to tell the difference between the genuine article and a fake. Most of us have to buy our Rolexes on the secondary market, and doing this comes with an inherent risk that you aren't getting the real deal. It turns out that over half of the Rolexes we see in the wild and on people's wrists are fakes. Think about that. On top of that, these fakes are getting so good that it can be extremely hard for someone to tell the difference between a real Rolex and a fake Rolex. Even so-called experts often have a hard time.
I've been dealing in watches for over 18 years now. I've probably handled thousands or hundreds of thousands of Rolex watches during my time, and the level that it's gone to, if this watch is purely on someone's wrist and I had to look at it from a distance, there's no way to tell whether it's a fake or an authentic watch. That is how good these are at the moment. So I'll go into depth. We're going to put a side by side throughout the video. I'm not going to reveal which one is the fake one. Then you can look at the video. At the end of the video, we'll show you which one is fake, and you can actually see if you did spot it right. We're going to put these watches under a microscope. I'm going to open them and look at the movements. We're going to look at the printing on the dial, the color of the bezel, the pull, the clasp, the printing, the stamping. I'm going to go through everything to show you guys, because this is something, if you do not have an authentic watch to compare it with, 99% of you guys would be fooled. I mean, if this watch was offered to me 5 years ago, it would have probably fooled me because it is so good. That just shows you, you really have to know what you're selling and be really careful where you're buying your watches from. If you're not buying them from someone that is trusted or has a very vast knowledge of Rolex watches or any brand, in that fact, you can really get burnt. And I've actually seen, this is the first time I've seen a Starbucks this good. There is some Rolex Submariners doing the rounds that I've seen in South Africa, a lot of Panerais, which is also high-end replicas. But those ones I can normally spot quickly. Even the fake Hulks that were going around, I can spot them. But these ones, it is a totally new level that they've gone to. And that's actually scary if you think, I wonder where we're going to be in 5 years' time. If they can do it at this level already, and we're in 2023 now, how far they've come from 2020 to 2023, it's just leaps and bounds. And I'm not praising the replica watchmakers. It's just insane what I actually saw, and I'll go into a bit more depth and I'll show you guys what's wrong and what's right. We've opened them up, compared them, and as you can see from the outside of the watch, or the exterior parts of the watch, they've put a much more effort into replicating that, because those are obviously the parts that you see of the watch when you first get it. So when you look at the dial, the hands, the finishing of the bezel, everything is pretty much spot on. I'll show you some differences now that I can see, but just off the bat it is really difficult to just spot that it's a fake from the exteriors. Okay guys, as you can see, the one on the left is the authentic one, the one on the right is the fake one. I mean, there's not really much difference you can see there. It is such slight differences. I mean, if you look at the lettering, you can see really slight differences, but it is not something that you can just point out and say, yes, the R looks different, or the L or the O's look different. I mean, all these photos are taken under a microscope with very high magnifications. So just by looking at with your naked eyes, you're not going to be able to see the differences. Just to show you the Rolex crown, the writing, authentic one on the left, fake one on the right. Let's move on to the next photo. Looking at the pearl, I mean, this looks pretty much identical to me. You know, on some of these photos the fake watch actually looks better than the authentic watch. But here, the first tell that I can see here is when you look at the bezel. If you go up a little bit, you'll see the machining on the authentic one is much more crispy, and the edges are way sharper than on the replica on the right. But it's, again, high magnification, and to the naked eye it looks pretty much the same. Let's look at the 50 on the bezel. The one on the left is the authentic, the one on the right is the fake. I just think I didn't zoom in properly on the right, that's why that 50 looks a bit faded, but as you can see, it's pretty much identical.
As replicas are getting better and better, it has gotten significantly more difficult to tell an authentic watch from a fake one.